The audacity of starting late. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. Your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I had the profound honor of sitting down with Myisha Gates, a visionary who is making the world a better place by reminding us that our stories aren't finished until we say they are. Myisha's work centers on empowering Black women to author their next chapters with boldness, wisdom, and unapologetic authenticity. She's not just talking theory, she's walking women through the messy, beautiful process of reclaiming their narratives after decades of being told they missed their window. Her message: it's never too late to write the story, is pure fire for every sister tuning in who's ever felt like time slipped away, like dreams got deferred, like maybe, just maybe, their moment passed them by. Spoiler alert, it didn't, let's be honest. We've been taught that success has an expiration date, that if you didn't launch your empire by 30, land your dream role by 35, or pivot your career by 40, you missed the boat. We've been fed this lie that reinvention is for the young, that late bloomers are somehow less legitimate, that starting over means starting from scratch with nothing to show for it. And if you're a Black woman, well, the world's been whispering that you should be grateful just to have made it this far, grateful to have survived, grateful to still be standing. But here's the truth Myisha shared with me, and I'm passing it straight to you. Age is not a barrier to pursuing your dreams. It's an invitation to author your next chapter with wisdom and boldness. Every story has room for reinvention, and late starts often lead to the most authentic and impactful narratives. Action today shapes tomorrow's legacy because small, consistent steps rewrite your story at any stage. Let that marinate for a second. You're not behind. You're right on time for the story only you can tell. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, LeAnne, that sounds beautiful, but I'm 52. I've got bills, I've got responsibilities, I've got a whole life that doesn't exactly scream fresh start. Yes, I hear you. And I'm not here to tell you to quit your job tomorrow and chase some fantasy. What I am here to tell you is that the women who changed the world, who built empires, who shifted entire systems, didn't always start young. In fact, some of the most powerful stories belong to women who started exactly where you are right now. Women who looked at their lives, at their age, at their circumstances, and said, watch me anyway. Let me paint you a picture. Vera Wang. Yes, that Vera Wang, the woman whose name is synonymous with bridal elegance, whose gowns have graced red carpets and royal weddings, whose designs have become cultural touchstones for love and celebration. She didn't launch her fashion empire until she was 40 years old. 40. After spending decades as a figure skater, after years at Vogue, after what many would call a full career, she sketched her first wedding gown for a friend, not because she had formal fashion training, not because the industry was rolling out the red carpet for a 40-year-old woman with no design credentials, but because she saw a gap. She felt a pull, and she refused to let age be the reason she didn't try. She had no formal fashion training. She faced skepticism from an industry obsessed with youth, one that whispered she was too old, too inexperienced, too late. She risked her own savings to bootstrap samples and build connections in the bridal world, one stitch at a time, one conversation at a time, one rejection at a time. And what happened? She built a $1 billion brand. She dressed Ariana Grande, expanded into accessories and perfumes, and redefined what bridal fashion could be, especially for women of color and diverse brides who'd been overlooked for far too long. Vera Wang didn't just start late, She started with perspective, with discipline honed from figure skating, with an eye sharpened by years of editorial work. Her delayed start wasn't a disadvantage, it was her superpower. She brought a lifetime of experience, a depth of vision, a refusal to settle that only comes when you've lived long enough to know what matters. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone but herself. And that made all the difference. Then there's Julia Tutwiler, a pioneering Black educator and prison reformer who transformed Alabama's penal system in her 50s. Born into the aftermath of slavery, Julia spent decades teaching before she turned her attention to the brutal conditions in Southern prisons. At 53, she began advocating relentlessly for reform, writing, forming alliances with governors, implementing education programs for inmates despite fierce resistance from male dominated prison boards and systemic racism that tried to silence her at every turn. Think about that for a moment. 53 years old, in the segregated South, a Black woman pushing against a system designed to crush her voice before she even opened her mouth. And she didn't just push, she bulldozed. She established the first women's reformatory. She championed literacy for thousands. She proved that late career advocacy yields systemic change. Her legacy lives on in modern rehabilitation models and in the very architecture of criminal justice equity. Julia Tutwiler didn't wait for permission. She didn't let age, gender, or race stop her from rewriting the story of an entire system. She looked at injustice and said, not on my watch, not anymore. And she did it when most people would have been thinking about retirement, about slowing down, about leaving the heavy lifting to the next generation. But Julia knew something we all need to remember. The next generation needs us to show them what's possible. They need to see us start late and still win. And then there's Madam C.J. Walker, born Sarah Breedlove, who became America's first self made female millionaire, starting at age 37. 37. She was a widowed washerwoman, orphaned young, raising a daughter alone, suffering from hair loss caused by the discriminatory conditions she endured. She had no capital, no access to white beauty markets, no formal business training. She had every reason to believe her life was already written, already determined, already small. But she had a dream, literally. She developed her own hair care formula through trial and error, trained a sales army of 40,000 Black women agents, and scaled her business door to door. She built lavish mansions, funded scholarships, and revolutionized Black beauty. She didn't just create wealth for herself, she empowered an entire generation of Black female entrepreneurs, paving the path for modern moguls like Rihanna, like so many women who stand on her shoulders today without even knowing her name. Madam C.J. Walker turned adversity into empire. She turned a late start into a legacy that still echoes today. She looked at a world that told her she was nothing and said, I'm going to build something so big, so undeniable that you'll have to remember my name. And we do. Over a century later, we still do. These women, Vera, Julia, Madam Walker, they didn't have it easier. They had it harder. They faced ageism, racism, sexism, financial barriers, and a world that told them their time had passed. But they refused to believe the lie. They picked up the pen and wrote their own stories anyway. They didn't wait for the world to give them permission. They gave themselves permission. And that's the difference between dreaming and doing. So here's my question for you. What's stopping you from doing the same? I know what you're thinking. LeAnne, those are exceptional women. I'm just me. But that's the thing, they were just them too. They were women who got tired of waiting for permission, who got tired of letting fear write their endings, who decided that their dreams deserved a fighting chance, no matter how late the hour. They were women who looked in the mirror and said, if not now, when? If not me, who? Myisha reminded me during our conversation that every story has room for reinvention. Late starts often lead to the most authentic and impactful narratives because you're not chasing someone else's blueprint. You're not performing for approval. You're creating from a place of deep knowing, from lived experience, from wisdom earned through every scar and every triumph. You're not trying to be the youngest or the fastest or the first. You're trying to be the truest. And that's a game you can't lose. Your soft girl era isn't about erasing your past, it's about honoring it while refusing to let it define your future. It's about releasing the cape, redefining strength, and embracing the softness that says, I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. I'm writing this story for me. Let's talk about what that looks like in practice. Because inspiration without action is just a nice feeling that fades by Tuesday, Myisha shared a powerful takeaway. Start scripting your next chapter today. Pick one dream deferred, just one. Maybe it's the business idea you've been sitting on for 5 years. Maybe it's the degree you never finished. Maybe it's the creative project that keeps whispering your name at 3 in the morning. Pick it, then outline 3 micro steps: research, skill build, network, whatever moves you closer, and commit to the first step by the end of this week. Not next month, not when things calm down, this week. Because here's the truth: action today shapes tomorrow's legacy. Small, consistent steps rewrite your story at any stage. You don't need a grand plan, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next right step, and then the next one, and then the next one. That's how empires are built. That's how movements start. That's how lives change, one step at a time. And I know you're busy. You've got a job, a family, a church role, a community that depends on you. But when was the last time you depended on you? When was the last time you prioritized your dream with the same energy you give everyone else's needs? When was the last time you looked at your own reflection and said, you matter, your dreams matter, your story matters? This is where the soft girl era gets real. It's not just about bubble baths and affirmations, though we love those too. It's about protecting your peace as a practice. It's about learning to say no without guilt. It's about setting boundaries without apology. It's about resting without explanation. It's about understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup and you've been running on fumes for far too long. Because you can't write your next chapter if you're too exhausted to hold the pen. Myisha's work is a testament to this. She's helping Black women see that it's never too late, that reinvention isn't reserved for the young or the privileged, that every one of us has the power to turn survival into something sacred. She's making the world a better place by giving us permission to dream again, to start again, to be soft and strong at the same time. She's reminding us that our stories are still being written, that the best chapters might still be ahead, that we get to decide on how this ends. And that's what I want for you today. I want you to feel that sweet surge of hope mixed with firm grit to move. I want you to walk away knowing, not just believing, but knowing that your story isn't over, that your best chapters might still be unwritten, that age is not a barrier, it's an invitation to bring everything you've learned, everything you've survived, everything you've become to the table, an invitation to stop waiting and start creating. So here's what I need you to do right now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. I need you to think of one thing you've been putting off because you thought it was too late. One dream you buried because the world convinced you the moment passed. One version of yourself you've been too afraid to become. I need you to name it out loud. Say it to yourself. Write it down. Text it to a friend. Make it real. And then I need you to take the smallest possible step toward it. Not a giant leap, not a dramatic life overhaul, just one small, brave, audacious step that says, I'm not done yet. My story is still being written, and I'm the one holding the pen because the world is waiting for the story only you can tell. The world needs the business only you can build. The world is hungry for the wisdom only you can share. And you don't have to wait for permission for the perfect moment, for all the stars to align. You just have to start. You just have to believe that it's never too late. You just have to trust that the most powerful chapters are often the ones written last when you finally know who you are and what you're here to do. Myisha Gates reminded me that it's never too late to write the story. And I'm reminding you, your pen is in your hand, your page is blank, your next chapter is waiting. The only question left is this: what are you going to write?